Imagine standing in the middle of the Nevada desert, watching the sky ignite with a blinding flash and feeling the ground tremble beneath your feet. That was the reality for many during the dawn of the nuclear age, an era that forever changed the world. Today I will be guiding you through the National Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada, a place dedicated to preserving and explaining the powerful and often sobering story of America's nuclear weapons testing program. Even though these events happened decades ago, their effects are still with us. Understanding the history of the nuclear testing helps us grasp modern global politics, science, and even pop culture. Whether you are interested in science, military history, or the ethical decisions behind powerful technology, this tour will give you something meaningful to think about. Our journey begins with Exhibit A, where we'll examine the Trinity test, the very first detonation of a nuclear bomb in 1945, which launched the world into the atomic age. Then in Exhibit B, we'll step into the Ground Zero Theater, an immersive experience that simulates the terrifying power of an atomic explosion. Finally, in Exhibit C, we'll explore how the Cold War era culture adapted to this new reality by looking at military rations, water supplies, and survival armbands that Americans were told to rely on in the event of a nuclear war. Welcome, everyone. This is our first stop on the museum tour, Exhibit A, the Trinity Test. This exhibit highlights a pivotal moment in world history, the first ever detonation of an atomic bomb, which took place on July 16th of 1945 in the remote New Mexico desert. The test was a part of the top secret Manhattan Project, where scientists and military personnel raced to develop nuclear technology during World War II. At the heart of this exhibit is the Gadget, the code name for the actual bomb used in the Trinity test. This wasn't just a prototype, it was a fully functional plutonium implosive device, similar in design to the bomb later dropped on Nagasaki. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, when the Gadget was detonated, it unleashed a blast equal to 21,000 tons of TNT, creating the now iconic mushroom cloud and unshearing in the nuclear age. Here at the museum, you can see detailed replicas and original artifacts related to the Gadget, including safety gear worn by the scientists and instruments used to measure the blast. The Atomic Museum's official website, atomicmuseum.vegas, explains how the Trinity test successes directly influenced the deployment of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ultimately leading to the end of World War II. These are images I'm showing on the slide now. One is a archival photo of the Gadget itself mounted on its test tower, and the other of the explosion captured just seconds after detonation. Both visuals come from the National Atomic Testing Museum's official collection. This exhibit is unforgettable, not just for the technology, but what it represents. The moment humanity unlocked a new terrifying force, changing global politics, warfare, and science forever. Now let's shift from history to experience. In our next stop, Exhibit B, I'll take you inside the Ground Zero Theater, where you'll get a sense of what it felt like to witness a nuclear test firsthand. Alright, everyone. Now that we've explored the origins of the nuclear age with the Trinity test, let's step into one of the most intense and unforgettable parts of the National Atomic Testing Museum. Welcome to the Ground Zero Theater. This exhibit recreates what it was like to witness an actual atomic bomb test. The noise, the flash, even the pressure wave, all from the perspectives of those stationed at the Nevada test site. As we take our seats here, the lights dim and the countdown begins. This simulation is modeled after real detonations conducted just 65 miles northwest of here at the Nevada test site where over 900 nuclear tests were carried out. The Atomic Museum's website, that's atomicmuseum.vegas, explains that the Ground Zero Theater uses declassified military footage and authentic sound recordings to give us a first-hand feel for what these explosions were like. And the story doesn't stop with the boom. Soldiers were sometimes ordered to march towards the blast site shortly after detonation, not fully understanding the long-term effects of radiation. The U.S. Department of Energy archives offer footage and documents that help tell these stories, and many of those materials are referenced in this exhibit. The first image shows reenactments of U.S. Army troops in the trenches during the moments of an actual atomic test in the 1950s. That photo comes from Nevada National Security Site Historical Archive. The second image is a still from inside the Ground Zero Theater, right here in Las Vegas, where guests just like you sit in darkness and watch that infamous flash of light burst across the screen. This exhibit isn't just about facts and figures, it's about putting you in the shoes of the people who were there. It's loud, startling, and unforgettable, and it drives home the magnitude of these weapons in a way that reading about them just can't. Now that we've seen the blast up close, let's head into our final stop, a lighter but equally fascinating part of the museum, where we explore how atomic age exploded into pop culture, from movies to toys and even breakfast cereal ads. Let's head that way. Welcome to our final stop on today's tour, Exhibit C, Cold War Pop Culture and Atomic Memorabilia. This exhibit at the National Atomic Testing Museum explores how atomic energy and nuclear testing didn't just stay on military bases. They spilled over into American homes, classrooms, and pop culture during the Cold War. From toys to survival gear, the atomic age was everywhere. One standout item is the Atomic Energy Lab toy kit from the early 1950s. Yes, it was marketed to children and came with real radioactive samples. It might sound shocking today, but back then, nuclear science was promoted as the future. According to the Atomic Museum's official website at atomicmuseum.vegas, this artifact represents the era's excitement and lack of caution about nuclear technology. Another key piece is the collection of atomic-themed comic books and advertisements. Brands used atomic energy as a trendy marketing tool, putting atomic in product names such as Atomic Cola or Atommobile. These colorful ads and comics show how nuclear imagery was used to sell products, and how the public's fascination with atomic power shaped everyday culture. Finally, you'll see a display of Cold War civil defense survival supplies like military issued rations, water containers, and medical armbands. These were stored in fallout shelters or handed out during drills. As noted by the Smithsonian Institution, these items weren't just survival tools. They were part of an entire national mindset shaped by the fear of a nuclear war. Together, these artifacts show that the Cold War was more than just a political tension or weapons test. It became a culture phenomenon influencing everything from childhood toys to the contents of our emergency supplies. Next, I'll wrap up our tour with a final reflection on what these exhibits teach us and why this history still matters today. Thank you so much for joining me on this virtual tour of the National Atomic Testing Museum. My goal today was to inform you about the complex history, technology, and culture impact of the nuclear testing in the United States. We began our journey with Exhibit A, the Trinity Test, which introduced us to the first ever detonation of an atomic bomb, marking the start of the nuclear age and showcasing the monumental scientific efforts of the Manhattan Project. Then we moved on to Exhibit B, the Ground Zero Theater simulation, where we experienced what it might have felt like to witness a nuclear test using sensory effects and historical footage to immerse visitors in the emotional and physical power of these weapons. Finally, in Exhibit C, we examine Cold War era memorabilia, including survival supplies such as military rations, water cans, and armbands. These artifacts showed how nuclear fear shaped daily life, media, and preparedness during these tense historical period. Now that you've seen how deeply nuclear testing has impacted science, history, and everyday life, I encourage you to think critically about the legacy these events left behind. Consider how today's decisions about nuclear weapons, global conflict, and peace efforts are still influenced by what we have learned during these testing years. The National Atomic Testing Museum doesn't just preserve history, it invites us to reflect on how past decisions continue to echo in our world today. I hope this tour has sparked your curiosity and gave you a deeper appreciation for the power and often unsettling nature of the atomic age. Thank you again for joining me.